Yeah, we're good.
Oh, yeah. 2 KTMs, huh?
2 KTMs in the back. Yeah, is the picture good enough?
Oh, yeah, it's great. Tell us about those KTMs.
All right. So the Golden Child, the 350, and then there's a 450 Monster back there.
So 2-stroke and the 4-stroke, or both?
No, both 4-strokes. So we have one of everything basically, but in the back, that's what we got. Because I got a 152 stroke, a 252 stroke, 2 300 2-strokes, a YZ 250, that's a 270, and then I got a KTM 250, a 350, and a 450. We got them all.
Nice job.
and I got a 6-year-old, right? So we got one of those EE5s and one of the TC50s for the 6-year-old. And the EE5 is amazing. Like when I bought it, I was like, I don't even know if he'll use it or something, but you could put it in your front yard. So the whole time during COVID, whenever I was gone for the month of July, it's just my wife, and she's a lawyer in town and crazy busy with COVID because she does will and estate planning. So she could just sit in the front yard after a hard day's work and let my little 5 and who's now 6-year-old just ride in the front yard and do laps in the front yard while dad's off for a month in Connecticut and stuff. So the EE5 was a blessing throughout the whole 2 years of COVID so far.
Yeah, that sounds good. I could just see his riding the little motorcycle, and all of a sudden the dad comes back after a month and he goes, geez, Dad, I forgot you were gone. Right? So,
totally. Like, he's a mama's boy too, right? He loves his mama. So, as long as mama's around, everything's fine. Everybody else can disappear, but mama can never disappear.
Got it. Just to bring our viewers up to speed a little bit. So I'm here with professional bicyclist Wolfgang Brandl, and Chris Horner, professional bicyclist, is in, where are you at right now, Chris?
I'm at the Paula motorcycle track in San Diego, California.
All right, awesome. And that's your morning activity.
Yeah, morning activity. Morning activity is my 19-year-old's in the car with me right now. So morning activities would come down and do Paula probably 3 or 4 times a week, and then get back home and jump on my bicycle and go for a ride and try to get in an hour and a half, 2 hours after the moto session.
Very cool. So we're in downtown Mount Gretna in our podcast studio, and you are in your most excellent van in California.
Correct. And on vacation.
Just to be clear.
This isn't everyday life. I'm on vacation right now. So we did the full 2-year lockdown period. And basically, as soon as we got my 6-year-old the vaccine shot, we went on vacation. Like, we hadn't been on vacation for 2 years. The little guy got his vaccine shot, and I loaded up the RV and we just head down south. And then my boy's 19. So he has college classes. So he had to come down for a week and then go back up to Bend, Oregon, where my home is, for 2 weeks. And then he was able to come back down. But I've been down here almost a month so far. And then I'll stay through to the probably 1st or something like that of January. And then I'll head back up north. Maybe I'll get a week longer in January. Depends on what's coming up sponsorship wise and all that stuff. And we got a trip to Disneyland planned at the end of December for the 6-year-old who turned 7 on Christmas.
Dude, living the dream. I love it. And you certainly have worked hard and deserve it. It's so glad to see someone who, follows their passion and does so well. And that's the lead for all of us. And you realize, of course, most of the viewers don't maybe know this, but you're one of 3 Americans to win a Grand Tour.
Yep.
Again, we talked about some of the stuff that we wanted to talk about yesterday on a brief chat with you. It was great. Le Mans, of course, won the Tour, and you won the Vuelta, and who won the Giro? Andy Hampstead.
Yeah, Andy Hampstead. Right. So, and I am the oldest Grand Tour winner in the galaxy. So,
That's so cool.
so no, the next oldest guy was 36, I believe, 36 and a half or something like that is the next oldest Grand Tour winner.
And you outdone
I
him
won
by 5 years, right?
Yeah, right. And I won at almost 42. I was 1 month away from turning 42.
Wow.
So everybody watching the podcast that's 30 or in their 40s, you still got to go out there. You don't have any excuses not to be out there riding your bike and getting the job done.
Dude, eventually, we get to that subject about, if you got to ride at night or commute in the morning, use a Lupine light and everything will be good. We're trying to think about how many, you won just about every race known to mankind. How many races do you think you've won over your entire, what was it, 96 to 2013? How long is that?
Yeah,
career?
give or take 100, right around there. I don't know if it's 10 plus or minus this way or that way. It's too hard to keep track, but it's up there about 100 victories. Throughout my time domestically when I was racing, I won a lot of stuff domestically. Over in Europe, have a win at the Tour of Swiss, have a win, of course, at the Basque Country, and then have the win at the Vuelta. And then top 10 at all the classic one-day races that I was part of. I didn't do Paris-Roubaix and stuff, but
that was a good podcast because you explained that. It's like, no.
Right. Yeah, you can't explain that one. So, it's been great. I've enjoyed racing. And when basically I didn't retire ever, I just got injured, couldn't heal up, had the lung problem, and then it just forced me out of the sport. So I would have stayed in the sport forever, though. I'm still riding my bike today. Like I said, we're here at the track this morning, and I'm going to be on my bicycle later today, riding in the dark. So it's part of the routine when I come down to SoCal in the wintertime is you got to moto and you got to ride the bike. And if you want to do both, one of them's going to be done in the dark because, of course, December is the shortest time of the year for daylight. So you got to work it in to be able to do both. You got to bring your lights down. And then that's how, of course, my contact with you guys at Lupine is working the lights at night so that I can still keep training both in the morning on the motos and then on the bicycle.
2 wheels, 1 love.
It's 100%. That's the way we roll. Even my 6-year-old that's turning 7, he does the same thing. He's riding the bicycle. So mama will go out and go running, and then he'll ride his bicycle while mom runs. And so he loves riding his bike and loves riding the motorcycle. And in the house, we have all the toys in the house, right? I just hang them up on the garage, and the kids can, if they want to ride, they can ride. If they want to moto, they can moto. So whatever we can do to keep the kids occupied and have a good time is what we have in the garage.
That's so beautiful. Well, I was going to ask Wolfgang because he was telling me that his father, right, was one of the first mountain bikers.
My mom and my dad, they started early in the early 90s and participated in world championships, mountain biking, and were part of like this growing scene, which is now a very professional sport. It used to be like just buddies riding mountain bikes, and now it's so professional.
Yeah, 100%. How old are your parents right now?
62 and 66.
Yeah, okay. So they got
John Tomac, for example.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Because that would be, so I was just coming up. I lived here in San Diego. I grew up here, went to elementary school, middle school, high school here. And when mountain biking first came on the scene, I was just starting to work at a bike shop, and I was working there when I was 15, and the whole bike shop would have Sundays off. So we would all meet up for breakfast, and the owner would pay for breakfast. Hal Drum was the owner, and it was right here on Convoy in Kearny Mesa in San Diego. And so it was Hal's Bike Center. So Hal would pay for breakfast, and then we would all jump on the mountain bikes and go out riding east here, San Diego. And we would ride, we'd be out there 6 hours. I mean, you just be out there riding. And in this day and time, mountain biking was new, right? We're talking about this is the late 80s. And I remember taking my BMX 2-finger brake levers and putting them on the mountain bike because they had those super long 4-finger levers. And so I would take my BMX levers, the 2-finger ones, put on there. And then I started running the clipless pedals on the mountain bikes. And everyone thought I was crazy, right? Because remember, it was the toe straps. You'd slip your foot into the toe strap and you pull those toe straps down. And if you fell over while going uphill, you're up upside down, you couldn't get your feet out, right?
Yeah.
So I started riding those clipless pedals, and people thought it was crazy. And I would tell them, I go, guys, this is the future. There's no doubt about it. Like, you are locked in, but you can get out still. And so everyone that saw the 2-finger brake levers and then the clipless pedals thought I was crazy. I was like, oh no, this is it. This is where it's happening. And I remember when full suspension was coming into play with Deluxx Bikes and all that stuff.
Right.
And I thought, at the time, no chance full suspension will ever take on. Like, there's no chance. This is a gimmick. It will never happen. The front suspension I can understand, but the rear, that Deluxx bike weighed like 40 pounds or 45. It was massive. And I remember it was Bob Roll that was sponsored by him and stuff. And when we got him in at the bike shop at Howell's, I was like, this will never take on. It's terrible. It doesn't work. It's horrendous, and it weighs a ton. And then now when I go ride a full suspension mountain bike, I laugh every time and smile ear to ear as you're going off some double and landing some double out there in the woods, like I'm on one of my motocross bikes behind me.
How about it? And you remember, we actually, our little small bike shop that I owned at the time, we became like the East Coast #1 seller of ProFlex. And, I remember that Sean Palmer, they came out with the ProFlex edition with this big green polymer shock on the front. And I was like, this is so cool. That's when I would go in the early 90s, I'd race downhill and cross country. And sometimes I'd use the same bike. I just changed the wheels out.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Crazy stuff.
I just can't believe how good it's gotten, the suspension wise, how much traction you get out of the tires, how absolute big air you can catch on these bikes, and then still ride it out and not crash after doing that. It's gotten to where there's good, basically, as a motocross bike out there, and they can just pull out so much air, so much hang time, and still ride out of those, right?
And still pedal really efficiently uphill. That amazes me too.
Right, exactly. So do you remember back in the day when night riding first caught on in San Diego at House Bike Center, we would meet up on Tuesday nights and have a whole crew that would ride out there on the first makeshift lights that were coming out. And so it was really cool in San Diego because it's still 70, 80 degrees out at night.
Yeah.
But you're riding at night with your lights on and stuff. And that was the first, it was the late 80s, early 90s when the first ideal of riding your bike at night started taking full effect, right?
Probably, and now, of course, Night Rider or something.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think at the beginning it was Night Sun, then later, so Night Sun and Night Rider, and they're all down here from San Diego. Yeah, and so they were the first ones to start, but it was crude, right? They were really, really crude, and now it's not the work of art like we get from Lupine and all that stuff, like how well detailed, how well put together the lights are. Back in those days, you could go through a puddle and your lights might flicker off, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they were heavy. Those batteries were almost lead acid and then nickel cadmium for a while. Just heavy.
Yeah, heavy. It's not like that's why I tell my friends now when I tell them riding at night, they look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, no. When you ride at night now, the lighting is so good, so fantastic that the cars can see you no problem. I get more respect from the car and more clearance between me and the car at night than you get during the day and stuff. And so when I'm riding at night, I don't feel dangerous at all at night because you have lights on the back and your front Lupine headlight is so, like when we're talking the SL model, that thing spreads out so far across the road that everyone from behind knows you're on the road, and any car that's coming up to an intersection sees you no problem. So, but that all started, way back in the late 80s, early 90s. And I remember being part of it here in San Diego doing those group rides. And it was just a magical moment because I was 15, 16, 17 years old when riding at night first took effect.
Think about that.
Yeah.
And you had the brake levers that you put on, and then you had the clipless pedals, and then you're riding at night and you're like, whoa, this is, you knew, you felt the energy, right? You were on the verge of something big.
Yeah, you knew. Everybody loved it. Like everyone's showing up at the parking lot while they're getting their bikes ready, and you're just going to have a fantastic night on the bike and just experience something completely different. When I was in Sacramento, I think it was early 2000, late 90s, I was in Sacramento training, and they got a bike trail there, and it goes for 30, 40 miles, whatever it is. And so I have my headlights on, and there's so much wildlife that comes out that you're catching all of the reflection off the deer's eyes and the little critters running. And one time I'm out there riding on the bike trail. It's super dark. I got one light on the bike, one on my helmet, and this bird flies down like this hawk or something flies down just like right over me and just dives down like that. You catch him with the headlight, and he just lights up under the wings and stuff. And that's stuff that you never get to experience riding your bike during the day. But if you go out at night and you pick the right trails where there's a lot of animal life, and when we're talking about the Sacramento Bicycle Trail, all the animals are hidden during the day, right? They're all trying to stay away from all the runners and cyclists and stuff. And so they're coming out at night to drink and eat and stuff. And when you get out there with your night lights on, they're just they don't know what's going on, but you're just digging it because the critters and wildlife around you is something you'll never experience during the day out there.
Yeah. So, we talked about that the other day here. When you're riding at night with the lights, the trees leaves are down. So you could see into areas. It's like, wow, I didn't know how that land went before. And I was thinking of the times I've been out west riding, you go through canyons and you get those canyon walls. And during the day, you don't really focus on them in the sun and all that. But then at night, you can actually get into those little grottos and those little parts of the canyon and different colors of rocks. And it's like, that's amazing.
And there's something about you have more energy, more power at night, right? I don't know if it's the excitement or the different training because you don't do it that often, but there's some extra more energy that's going through the body and through the legs and through the pedals that's just bringing the experience and the height of riding at night just that much higher.
It is. And, the perception is that, man, I'm going really fast here. I'm really doing better than I did today. You probably aren't. I looked at my Strava and I was going that slow. I felt like I was going twice as fast. But good stuff.
So do you go on road bikes or mountain bikes? Do you go alone or do you go group rides at night?
So now I'm just up by myself when I'm riding at night right now. And normally what happens is, like I said, I'm at the motocross track, and then 4 times a week, I'm going out on the bike at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and it gets dark at 5. Yeah. So I'm not back till 5:30, 6 o'clock, right in that range. And so I need the lights just to get me through that half hour, 45 minutes or something like that of when the sun just finally drops down and stuff. And of course, I'll run just the SL model on the front of the bike so that it's on from the minute I leave the house. But then if you're going through traffic and stuff and you're going under trees, it'll brighten up for you automatically. So I don't have to bother functioning with the switches or anything like that. And then once the sun completely drops down, it just goes into high mode.
So good. And also, I know we've got the new Rotlet Max, and you're familiar with the Rotlet. So I'm going to send you a couple of these. And the Max just has a little bit more thickness, double the battery power. So we're good for like 4 hours or so or more.
Depending on perfect. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. For those of you who don't know, you've got to watch The Butterfly Effect. One of my favorite all-time podcasts on race commentary from yours truly, Chris here. And it's so unfiltered and it's so real. And we were talking about this yesterday about the coverage you did on the worlds in this last,
in Belgium.
Belgium. Right. And you were talking about Remco and that whole race. And I was so jazzed to hear that. We talked about that yesterday, but I thought that was the penultimate podcast. I thought you nailed it, man. That race was so fun. And of course, I'm on the West Coast up in Bend, Oregon when I'm watching it. So I got to be up at 1 a.m. in order to watch it live. Race starts at about 1 a.m. I get up at 1:15. I go down and I flip the switch on and I look, and there's a 8-man break. I think it was not a whole lot of time, but just a normal everyday break that goes up in bike racing. And then all of a sudden, with 180 kilometers to go, the race just lights up and gets exciting. The brakes brought back.
Of course, the French team is just throwing down attack after attack, and Remco Evenepoel with 178 kilometers to go is following the text. I mean, for your viewers watching today, Remco Evenepoel is a guy who honestly, in my mind, easily could be a winner of the World Championships this year, and instead is following attacks with 178 kilometers to go, which is a huge no-no. And then when he gets up there, he's just driving it like madman and just pulling as hard as he can. And he had amazing form. So I'm sitting on the couch and I just can't even believe what I'm watching. I'm like, this never happens. This is insane to have certainly a 5-star favorite. But, you know, you had Wout van Aert, that was the outright favorite before the race started. Julian Alaphilippe, the current road race world champion from the year before. Yep. He's got to be right up there with Wout van Aert. And then Remco Evenepoel's right behind those guys. And I mean, behind as close as you could possibly put them. And with Wout having bad legs, with Julian Alaphilippe not being in Belgium, you got to believe Remco Evenepoel is really the number one rider at that moment. We don't know it, but at that moment, he's the number one rider with form and stuff to win the world championships.
Yes.
He doesn't know it. His directors don't allow the race to progress to a point for him to figure out how good he is and how bad Wout van Aert was going to be later. Because Wout van Aert was still super. He just wasn't his super self of Wout van Aert. He was still 100%, right? He's still 5th best rider in the race, if not 3rd or 4th or something like that. But maybe it flopped back over Julian Alaphilippe and Remco Evenepoel's form. So Belgium had a lot of options to win the world championships and just threw them all in the gutter. I mean, it was unbelievable. And when you watch a race like that and just a bunch of incredibly strong guys just go into knuckleheadism of racing, you know it's going to be exciting all day, right? So as much as I go call these guys knuckleheads, or this guy's a knucklehead, or he's a knucklehead, it makes for some exciting bike racing. And so whenever I'm watching something like that, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great podcast and a great YouTube show here on the Butterfly Effect. But you don't know it when you're waking up at 1 a.m. So I'm waking up at 1 a.m., come down, I'm all drowsy and look, oh yeah, hey, guys in the break, no big deal. And then all of a sudden my eyes light up and you're glued into the show. For that race, I had like 400 pictures taken from the screen, because I never know what I'm going to have to go back and use picture-wise for the YouTube channel. And so when it's all said and done, when the race is over, because remember, I got pictures from kilometer 0 watching all the way to the end. And then plus there's 40 minutes of post-race interviews and stuff. So you're getting pictures from there. Yeah. And on to hundreds of pictures I had, because there was that much racing. And I get up, we start the videotaping after the race. We start setting up everything to shoot for the YouTube channel. And I'm just going off, and it's my boy that does all the editing. And he knows we need to be about 10 to 14 minutes per video for the Butterfly Effect. And there's a clock behind the camera in front of him that I can see, and the clock's going 10 minutes, it's going 15 minutes, it's going 20 minutes, it's going 25 minutes. And my boy's like, and I can't cut it shorter. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to show you viewers what happened in the race. You have to watch at least 25 minutes. And I would have loved to have made that episode on the World Championships an hour and a half. I mean, that's how much good racing.
We break that rule all the time here. And it's like, well, I can't cut anything out. We got to talk about it. But to your point about, 400 pictures, that's a lot of work to go through that. But you picked the best ones, because truly, picture's worth 1,000 words. Those pictures that you picked as you were commentating with the arrows and stuff, I'm like, I got a clear idea of what's going on. Even though I saw the race, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a penultimate moment. That was a good thing, and he's got it right there on film.
So Bill and Wolfgang, remember, Wolfgang, you know this for sure, and Bill, you raced, so when I'm watching the races, I still feel like I'm in the race. Like I'm viewing it like I'm, even though it's a helicopter angle or a front angle or a side angle camera, I'm seeing it as I'm behind the rider's butt right there and watching the whole thing happen in front of me. And so it if it's raining, I could feel the moisture and the rain, and I could smell the rain on the road and stuff. You know how it is too, Wolfgang. You're from Europe, so you know how the smells are different there versus in the U.S. And these big races when you have fans on the side of the road and they're going all crazy. I can still feel that energy when I'm watching a race like the World Championships and all that excitement's going down. So I just get so wrapped up into it that there's no way to cut the video any shorter. I can't sell it short. You know, you have to deliver the goods of what happened in the race. It's so fun to do.
Yeah, and I think your viewers appreciate your experience and also your honesty to tell your opinion, what's going on, and not just talking around it. Just go straight to the point and tell what's happening. And that's why I like your channel a lot, because it's like I watch it and I understand the race and see it from a different viewpoint.
And you're a sprinter, so you know what it's like to be up there. I mean, you're racing here domestically right now, but winning big crits here in the U.S. And so you know what it's like when you're fighting for that little inch of space that's left on the road, and you have to shoot that little gap, but things are getting crazy. But if you don't shoot that gap before that right turn comes with 1K to go, you're going to get stuck in the back, and then your race is over, right? So you have to still stay calm. You can't go early. You got to feel the energy. You have to hope that gap is going to open up just for you to shoot at the last minute so you can get up there and get in position to win the sprint. And that's when I'm watching the sprinters, because I grew up racing here domestically, so we did criteriums all the time, right? So a lot of people understand me as being a GC guy because I won the Vuelta. I won the Tour of the Basque Country. I won California. I won a lot of big stage races, but they don't understand that I fed myself early in my career by doing criteriums. So I might not have been able to win the criteriums, but I had to learn the trade just as you do, Wolfgang. Mm-hmm. To survive, to eat, you have to win prize money. And so you have to be, I have to be in the perfect position possible out of the last corner, because I'm not going to win the race, and fifth or third, fourth, and fifth doesn't pay that good. You can't afford sixth place money to go back home and pay rent. So you better get top 5 if you're going to pay rent. So you have to learn to trade. You have to learn how to fight through those gaps. You have to learn to come out of the last corner, be on the right sprinter's wheel. I'm not going to beat the right sprinter, but he's going to take me all the way to the line, which will help me get third, fourth, or fifth, right? I was never going to win. I never thought I'm coming out of this last corner, I could win this sprint. In my career, I won 2 sprints, and each time it was done with a little bit of tactical luck, and I happened to be in the right spot, and everybody took themselves out or something like that. And so, it can happen, right, Wolfgang?
Yeah,
Wolfgang, when you're racing, they could all crash with half a lap to go. Exactly. You're in the right spot. Boom, you punch it and you go. So I was lucky enough to be in those spots a couple times and win field sprints. But in general, all I was ever hoping to do is be third, fourth, or fifth, because it still paid okay prize money, and you could go home and pay rent when you got there, because I was living off of prize money, right? Yeah. In those days.
So tell us a little bit about coming back from the European cycling scene, from the World Tour racing, back to the domestic scene. I raced with you at Cascade Cycling Classic in 2016, and you were a big name, of course. You raced for Lupus, I remember, for Illuminate. How was it coming back from like the big stage back to the domestic stage?
Good question. Yeah, I was always wondering.
So that was the crazy thing. When you're racing over in Europe all the time, I'm still reading about the bigger races here in the US, so you don't think much has changed, right? And when I come back in 2015 and 16 and race domestically, I couldn't believe there were so many races missing. Like when I was a kid, you could race every weekend, big criterium races here in the US, and those races were disappearing. Now you're left with Redlands and Tour of California and Utah. But remember, if you're a domestic team, unless you're one of the big domestic teams, you can't get into California and Utah, right? Because all the UCI teams are being invited over. So sure, as fans and as your viewers know, teams like Jelly Belly and of course the other big U.S. teams like United Healthcare and that stuff, those guys could get into Tour of California because they were the biggest. But every other domestic team is missing out on Tour of California. So that's 2 weeks or 3 weeks out of the calendar gone that you can't race anything good. You can't get into Utah. So that 2 weeks of racing window there is gone. So now you're talking about a month of racing or even a month and a half of racing that's disappeared. Then you take away a few of those big money criterium races that are gone. You no longer have San Francisco Grand Prix. You don't have the Philly week. When I was racing amateur, the Philadelphia U.S. Pro Championship week, that was 2 weeks. You would go do the Arlington, Arlington, Virginia, I believe it was. Criterium, and another big criterium that brought over Saxo Bank and a bunch of the big European crit teams and stuff would come over. And then you would go into Lancaster, Trenton, and of course the big one, Philadelphia. So that was 2 big weeks of racing. Those are gone now. In 2015, 16, they're gone. They don't really exist. You have the Philadelphia race, which turned into a morning race of about 100 miles, but it wasn't the big Philadelphia show.
Exactly.
Lancaster's gone, Trenton's gone and stuff. So the U.S. has always had a problem of keeping the big races around for that, to make them that epic history like you see in Paris-Roubaix or Flanders and stuff like that. And of course, the history of the Tour de France, the Giro, the Vuelta, those type races have been around for 100 years. So they got massive history. Eddie Merckx have won those races. And so when the races in the U.S. keep disappearing, like San Francisco Grand Prix is gone.
Yeah.
You had the one in Pittsburgh Thrift Drug Classic that disappeared. Norwest Cup disappeared. And those were $150,000 prizeless races, big one-day money races with huge crowds, huge exposure. And now I'm coming back at 15. And there's nothing. There's really nothing to bring you up. You have California, you have Gila, and then we got to do Utah, but we missed out on California. So with only Redlands, California to race, you miss out on that 2 weeks at Tour California by not getting the entry into that. And then all those great one-day races are gone, like San Francisco Grand Prix. So there's just not enough racing in the U.S. And as you know, Wolfgang, with the year 2020 and 2021, with all the pandemic issues, those races disappeared altogether. So in the U.S. is hurting these last 2 years. You're left with only
down to
criteria.
7 professional domestic teams in the States. We used to have like 15, 16 teams. We only had 1 UCI race in the States. So hopefully all the races you just mentioned are coming back. So I think we basically have to work on the base of like bike racing. Bike racing has to be cheaper, more affordable, more accessible for everyone. Like we buy bikes for $12,000. We need also bikes like lower level entry to make everyone ride bikes and race bikes. And then we have a big pool where we can pull out the best guys and then have them riding on bigger teams and even maybe going to Europe one day.
Okay, so this is my belief because in 20 and 21, the bicycle industry has made the most money they've ever made. They're all selling out everything they can deliver. Every bike shop during 2020 had lines out the door. Their inventory was emptied. They've all made good money during the last 2 years. So the bike industry should be in a wealthy financial state at this point in time when we're talking about 2022. What the bike industry has to do, the bike shops, every bike company out there, they have to pull some money together and they have to keep this massive influx of new cyclists that just went out and bought bikes during COVID, who have fallen in love with bikes, who have 9-to-5 jobs but want to ride their bikes every day, who want to just go out and have a great time, who want to finish work, get off work, and then go for a 1-2 hour ride. If it's winter time, that's why we're here with Lupine and the lights. You got your lights and you can keep riding your bike. And once the pandemic opens back up to normal again, and the bike industry has to find a way to keep a massive percentage of all these new cyclists that have started riding their bikes in 20 and 21 year. So the bike industry, all the shops, all the dealers, anyone associated with bikes, you guys there at Lupine, everyone has to come together and find a way to keep all these new cyclists that just bought bikes these last 2 years. And we got to keep them in the business, and we have to grow the sport and make it the beautiful sport that we know it is. and just keep everybody there and just keep growing it instead of having the pandemic leave and everyone go back to watching the Super Bowl on Sunday while eating chips on the couch. They're out riding their bike for 3 hours and they're coming back after halftime and then eating chips and watching the Super Bowl, right? Because we don't want to watch the Super Bowl, but we don't have to kill the whole day. You go out and ride your bike for a couple hours and then you can come back and you can eat the whole bowl of chips and the hot dogs and the hamburgers and not gain any weight and feel fantastic because you rode your bike. You had a great time riding your bike. And now you got part 2 of your day is the Super Bowl or the highlight game that's on that weekend. But there is time and there's plenty of time to do both, right?
Right. So solid point. And so the other thing we talked about yesterday was where does this leave a young American road cyclist? Because you were talking, and you could probably cover it again, about that huge gap. Even if there's a few more races here, how do you make that jump over to Europe? How does that happen now for a young guy?
So that goes right back to what we just finished in the conversation. The industry has to continue to grow the sport with more bike races, more Gran Fondo rides. And there is not, at this point in time, there's so few races in the U.S. that the U.S. domestic riders are going to have big problems racing in the U.S. First off, like you said, Wolfgang, it's so expensive they can't get to the races. So then even the good ones that they could get into, they can't afford to do it. So now they're just doing local crits. And now they have to find some way to go from a local crit to riding Alpe d'Huez and Mont Ventoux and the Angleroo and being able to stay with the best riders in the world. It's so hard to do. And the problem is, too, it's very difficult to spot the talent because a guy who could ride Mont Ventoux and the Angleroo and Alpe d'Huez isn't the guy who wins the Criterium or the 100K road race because it came down to a sprint. That's not the same guy. I mean, we're not going to see Sepp Kuss winning a Criterium, right?
That's maybe the chance here in the States to have like a different venue. Like in Europe, we have the stage racing and like the big classics. Maybe I compare it like Formula One in Europe and NASCAR in the United States. We have a different kind of racing here in the States, like this 1 hour, up to 90 minutes of crit racing in downtown city fast, and people can watch it. And after 90 minutes, the show is over and they can go home or drink a beer or hang out. Like it's hard to watch like a Tour of California or like Tour de France because the riders go by and then you don't see them for five more hours. So that's something we can work on. Like the cycling scene has to work on, like bringing these events to all the major cities, bring spectators to the races, and this will also attend like more cyclists. They see us racing and they say, I want to be in this race next year, and then they start training and do maybe a local race, and then hopefully race against us.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that is the only way to grow it in the U.S. is more bike races, and it's going to start, of course, from within the industry. So the bike shops, the bike owners, the bike companies, everybody's got to somehow throw in money into the kitty. And that's going to start those bike races growing. And then when you get the huge spectators, you bring in the outside sponsors that aren't specifically bicycle related, but they love the exposure. Mm-hmm. And then you bring those in and then you start growing it. And now all of a sudden the bike racing's fantastic. And remember, after 20 and 21, everybody wants to be outside right now. This is an ideal time to have bike races. Correct. Because people are all right, Bill. People are always going to want to get together. But we're together right now on Zoom, right? People will always mingle together. Even a recluse person that's totally secluded, at some point in time, he wants to come together with people, right? It's a natural feeling, right? So what other safe, better way is there for people to come together than to be outside during this 2021 pandemic stuff and to be outside watching a bike race? Bike races shouldn't be disappearing. Bike races should be coming back, and they should be on full steam ahead mode with bringing people out of their houses in the safest environment possible. I mean, we all know with COVID and stuff, the safest is to be apart. But now we're all getting vaccines where it's all coming down. We can start being together. But if you're outside, you're breathing fresh air, then you can afford to be around people. And that's what bike racing is. So this is the perfect time to have more bike races and not be losing bike races, but to be putting bike races on.
Yeah, maybe at this moment I would invite all the viewers to our training camp. Team Skyline is having training camp in Oceanside, California, beginning of January. And we also host a Gran Fondo. So we will put a discount code in the show notes so people can sign up for this and meet a local domestic bike team. And maybe Chris, you're coming out and ride with us. We offer a 100-kilometer and 100-mile route. So just feel free, sign up, hang out with us, have tacos and beer afterwards, have some nice talking about racing, about our experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you guys are doing with Skyline, putting on the Gran Fondo, that is what's keeping all the people who just bought brand new bikes. That's what will keep them interested in the sport. Because the first thing I ever did when I was riding a bike after I bought it is I went down and did Rosarita, the Ensenada bicycle ride. And it's a Gran Fondo ride, right? There's 14,000 people doing this ride. I mean, the whole street is just packed with cyclists. They start the gun and everyone rides and finishes and has a good time. There's food, there's places to eat and drink. There's aid stations there. And so what you guys are talking about with Skyline putting on that Gran Fondo, that is the first step to get people who've just bought bikes to come out, meet the cyclists, meet more cyclists, be around more cyclists, learn the ins and outs and the beauty of riding your bike with a group and the fun that there is involved, and then grow from there. And they can stay at that level, or they can continue to keep racing more competitive stuff where you have to have a license and stuff. And then they'll learn to enjoy, love riding their bike, stay on their bike, stay with the cyclist industry, and just grow it in all aspects possible and imaginable. And then bike racing will just naturally come, right? But everyone has to go. Everyone's going to go through a Gran Fondo period first, unless you got a dad like my kids that have been racing bikes. They're going to start everybody's going to start doing a Gran Fondo. So when we're talking about the Skyline team putting on a 100K, so 62-mile ride, that is the perfect distance for people down in SoCal right now to come out, do a safe event. That's during COVID. Come out, do a safe event, keep themselves healthy, have a good time, burn some calories, have a fantastic day on the bike, learn some more skills being around more cyclists that are thinking and having the same kind of activities that you like to do. And then it'll just continue them loving the sport of cycling and staying in forever.
Boy, that's so good. I love hearing that. So good. You're very motivating and energizing. I love to hear that. And, I get that same effect every day every time after I watch the Butterfly Effect. I'm like, I got to get on the bike. And then I often think, like, I'm no stranger to the Peloton, usually off the back or behind. But I often think of some of your quotes, and I'm like, okay, what would Chris do now? And it's like, no, I'm not chasing that. And and of course, I love the most wonderful use of the word knucklehead that I've ever heard. And you can use it and you're not adversarial at all. It's almost complimentary. Like the fact that you identify somebody as a knucklehead, they got to go, yeah, he's right about that.
We all are at some point in time, right? Right. I mean, when I'm sitting on the Butterfly Effect show doing it, I'm thinking, I made that mistake like 5-10 times during my career.
So much. That's all I do. I sit there and go, that's why I screwed that up. Yeah, he's right. Damn it. Fooled again. Boy, I'll tell you what, geez, so much we could talk about, but like you said, we're already, I don't know how long we into this so far, Josh.
Well, we could just have a part 2.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's
so we could always come on another day too and come up with something interesting to talk about and entertain your viewers and stuff. That's pretty easy to do. So like always, it's hard for people to have time to watch more than an hour's worth of a channel, but we can put together shows all the time.
So I'm gonna you gotta text me your address of where you're gonna be in the next couple of weeks, and I'll get these lights out to you. I'll get you a couple of Rotlet Maxes. But we talked about this yesterday, and we have like 3 new SLs. Okay, and there they are. I mean, you can see there it's a bar mount, which you probably have. But
mine's bar mount. Yep.
Yeah, you can get GoPro mounts for them. So if you've got a GoPro knuckle like underneath your Wahoo Element or your, you can do it there. And that's even nice because you can move it from bike to bike to bike. So when we talked a little bit about the importance of the European road standard, which we were referring to as STVZO, which is a European road standard for automobiles. And so if you're a bicycle and you're on the road, then you adhere to the same standard. And it's not true or not, let's say, administered throughout the United States. Certain states have the laws, but mostly they don't. I understand they're working on it now and trying to make it more of a uniform code for the road, if you will. But yeah, some of the features of that light we talked about yesterday, like you said, it's a nice carpet, first of all, and right to the ends. It's not like a hot spot. And it also has a distinct cutoff that you can focus. So it's right at chest level for pedestrians or not going into a car's, through their windshield. And so they can
not blinding the guy.
Right.
Yeah, not blinding them.
And so it has all those features. And of course, like you said, the SLs have a light sensor on board. And so daytime, which is the STVZO standard, is a running light, just like a vehicle. It's not a blinking light, it's a running light. And so at night, the SL series of lights senses those, and it immediately goes to low beam. And then, of course, with the new ones, which I'll send you some to play with, it's got a high and a low beam with a wireless remote. So you can go to high beam when there's nothing in front of you. Or if you're sort of off-roadish kind of a situation. So, I'm jazzed that you're using those. And, there's also on the Rotlet is a onboard accelerometer. So what that does is you're either in blink or pulse mode and you're going along. And if you slow down, like in traffic, or if a car in front of you, or if there's a group of riders, and that thing goes from blink, 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 it goes to solid automatically when you slow down. In effect, it's a brake light. So that's really cool.
Same as your car.
Yeah,
same
exactly
as your car, right? You got the light back there, and then of course the car's always steady, but then it goes really bright. And of course with the Rotlet, it's blink, blink, and then really bright, steady. So if you're in a group too, everybody knows you're slowing down.
Yeah, I always I joke about it. If someone's in front of me, and I'm getting dropped on a long climb, I'm like, damn. And then I see it blinking, blinking, blinking. I know I don't have a shot. But all of a sudden I see it go solid. I'm like, a little bit of a drop anchor here. I think maybe I'll put an effort in and maybe I can catch that.
Right. Yeah, 100%. They're going a little bit slow on the descent, and they're taking a couple of the turns that you could do full gas, but they're getting on the brakes a little bit. Yeah, you can see them slowing down.
Yeah.
So when we're bike racing, that's the way we do it. We do it off the motorcycle, right? If you're coming down, when we're racing at Tour de France, Vuelta, Giro, whatever one-day classic that I was doing, and you're off the front of the group, the way you judge the corners is when that brake light comes on that motorcycle that's just paced out in front of you, right? Brilliant. So the same thing with when you're riding with a group and they got their taillights on, you see that light up, okay, he's slowing down, let's go get him.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That was great. Oh man, it's been so good talking to you. We got to do this again. I could think of so many subjects. Wolfgang, you got any questions? Or, I know that you came over here to America to race domestically, and then all of a sudden you find COVID, and the next thing you know, you got a handful of crits that you actually won. How many crits you win this last year?
Won 8 criteriums and podium 12 times. So our team is probably the best team on the East Coast right now in crit racing, and we hope to have more competitors next year. That's a little problem. Only 7 teams left in the States. So we hope the bike scene is growing again, having more races, having more people to race against, because that's what crit racing makes exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard when you raced at Dolestown and stuff. I remember doing Dolestown was one of the last big criteriums I was doing before all the season of races shut down. And that's a fabulous race. So to get the results there at Dolestown that you got, you're going good when you got that many top wins and top podiums and all that stuff. You're a sprint specialist.
Yeah, what was your? Chris talked about it yesterday about how tough it is because you got to go a long ways to get to the race, unlike Belgium or Northern Europe there. And then you got to maybe take a plane, or it's a 2 or 3 day thing. And then you got to spend all kind of money for a hotel room. And the money's not quite as good as it used to be. And certainly the ratio of payout to the amount of money and time you got to expend to get to a race in Europe versus the United States, it's a night and day situation. So, so that was tough, right? The financing and stuff.
Yeah, I'm used to European racing every weekend, like hopping in the car, driving 30 minutes, pay €8 and race 2 hours, 3 hours. And then the next day the same. And here I have to go in a plane, buy a plane ticket, fly to the next city, get an Uber, get a rental car, then pay like $70, $80 for registration and race 60 minutes. And then I maybe crash out like 2 laps to go. And then I lost all this money and And that's a problem. Like in Europe, I paid $100 a month for racing, and here I pay $100 a day for racing.
Yeah, right.
So that's a big difference. And that's what we should work on. Like and in Europe, we have like this club structure. Every club has a bike team, has a local team, has a local race. And they don't want to make money. They just want to get people out and have races. And here I feel like the promoters, they want to make money on us bike races. And this should not be in like in the lower categories, like Cat 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1s. So this has to change.
Yeah, they need to change that. And that's where the industry could help that, right? They could come through and they could cover all the entry fee stuff at these races. So guys could just come over, drive their car over, not have to pay an entry fee and stuff. That'd be big. And of course, in the US, what really made it possible is we could stay at host family houses and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so when these organizers, when I would go do Super Week in Wisconsin and you were there for 3 weeks, the organizers would find us a house for somebody to stay at. Almost all the time. I'll take Redlands, California, for example. I've probably done that race 12 times at least. And I've stayed with the same host family for 10 years.
That's a great
I've seen their kids grow up. I've literally seen their kids grow up and get married and have kids of their own. Because I was racing there in the early 90s, like 1991. And I raced there again in 2015. And then I did an appearance there later at like 2018 or 19, I went there and stayed at their house. And so their kids are getting married and they have grandkids and everything. And so it's amazing. I've been in the sport for so long. I've seen the sport just expand and grow and then shrink and then expand. But really in the US, you need those host families. So you need volunteers to come in and open their houses up. You need the entry fee to be free and for the top quality classes for sure. And the little kids and stuff, that needs to be free. And then hopefully the race, the bicycle industry as a whole comes through and helps support these bike races, which will grow the racing in the US 100%. But that's what we got to do
too. Like we cyclists, we're accessible. You can go to the race and say hello, talk to us. This is not happening in basketball and football and any other sports. You cannot just walk up there and talk to us, and you can build up a relationship and see us next year, see us different races. And that's something special.
Yeah, come out of for all the viewers, go watch bike race, come out, enjoy the bike race. It's the safest place you can be if you're going to be around people. It's a fantastic experience. It's a great vibe watching the criteriums and the big circuit races in America. So all the fans that have just bought bikes this year and the last 2 seasons, come out, watch some bike races. Come over and do the Skyline Gran Fondo here in Oceanside in San Diego in January. It's going to be a fantastic experience. And it's 60 miles. It's a perfect way to take your cycling to the next level, going from riding by yourself to going out and doing group rides and seeing what it's really like and feeling that energy of being around hundreds of cyclists that all love riding their bike.
Do you have any races plans for next year, or Gran Fondos, gravel races?
I don't have anything planned right now just because the 2020 season and 2021 season, everyone canceled that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was literally just, aside from my time working with NBC at the Tour de France, I was at home, complete lockdown. The kids, my boys were hanging out with me. We had my 6-year-old hadn't been in school yet. He just started school a couple months ago. And now he has his vaccine. My 19-year-old was doing online classes at college. My wife owns a law firm in Bend, Oregon, where she does will and estate planning for the whole West Coast. And she just had her whole building locked down. So we've been in lockdown. This is the first time I have mingled with people in almost 2 years. It's crazy. It felt so strange driving down to SoCal when I got into LA, it felt so strange having cars pass me left and right because I hadn't experienced that in 2 years. And the first time I did my first group ride, they call it the Thug Ride, here last Saturday was the first time I've done a group ride in over 2 years. And it was amazing. I was like, this is so much fun. It was fantastic and enjoyed it. So, yeah, but man, I appreciate you guys having me on the show. It's just absolutely so fun and cool and being part of it. And hopefully the cycling industry as a whole just comes together and keeps all this industry momentum growing forward in the years to come.
Agreed. That's a great parting comment for this moment. So glad you got on the show. Your energy is just so great. I love it. I want to go out and ride right now. We're going to go ride. Thanks again.
Well, I'll ride later tonight, man. I'll ride later tonight. So get on
fine, brother. So, so text me your address. Let me get you some new stuff out there. And for all you folks out there, it's great. Chris speaks the truth. It's like you can get so much enjoyment out of life with the bicycle. And you can still watch a football game second half. I got all that. I live by that. And if you're out there now, please watch the Butterfly Effect. You will love it. Great show. Looking forward to the Grand Tours this year. Seeing you as announcer, seeing the Butterfly Effect. So psyched for all that.
Bill, Wolfgang, thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Thank you. Peace out.
Bye-bye.
Long live long rides.
Later. Absolutely. And enjoy the night.
Enjoy the night with Lupine Light. Thank you. Take care.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wiedersehen.
Wiedersehen, yeah.